Yo, what's going on? Good afternoon, Detroit and surrounding areas. I am so excited. My name is Whitney Clark. Now, I am a write-in candidate for Detroit City Council District 5. Today, I am sitting with a mayoral candidate, Mr. Joel Haashiim. Good morning. How's it going? And so we're going to bring him in. You know, we had one wonderful mayoral forum on last night, and so he's going to be talking to us a little bit about that and as well about your platform. How are you doing this morning, sir? Thank you so much for being here.
I'm doing great.
How was it last night?
Well, it was a little bit off the hook.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I had an opportunity to be amongst the other candidates. I just would have liked to have seen a little more control.
Yeah.
And more forthright questions on the core issues.
Okay. What are the core issues in your estimates? And what are the core issues that you felt like weren't really tackled on last night?
I think they should have touched on housing. They should have touched on jobs.
Yeah.
They should have touched on child care scenarios.
Absolutely.
Where people can't go to school or work because of the children. They should have touched on how you're going to actually bring in revenue into the city treasury.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Those are just some of the core issues, but Detroit has so many core issues.
Certainly.
There's so many problems, but basically, I would have liked to have seen more direct questions.
Yeah, certainly. Let's lean into this real quick. You mentioned jobs. Tell me a little bit about, and then obviously we'll jump back into some of the moments from last night, but tell me a little bit about the report that said 35 of the contracts that were tracked, 35 of those contracts were tracked, and 0 of them delivered on the promise to hire 51% of Detroiters. So when you talk about jobs, when you talk about bringing revenue, I know you said into the treasury, but when we're talking about bringing revenue into the pockets of everyday, Detroiters, what is your solution for a report like that?
Well, the first thing as mayor, I'm going to fight for a community benefits agreement.
Okay.
A CBO doesn't have any teeth in it.
Okay.
It's not enforceable by court. And so when these corporations break their word and don't hire Detroit residents, then we want to be able to take them to court and force them to keep their word. So that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that we're talking about bringing in jobs to Detroit. You know, for me, it's understanding that you have they call it a quarter trillion sector of the economy that you have to build.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that in order to have a smart city and to bring industry in, you have to build a foundation.
Certainly.
If the foundation is not there, those companies are not going to come to Detroit. So whether they're international companies or national companies, they're not coming if you don't have a proper infrastructure, if you don't have the work educational backing. You know, if you don't have workers who are trained properly for that particular job.
Let me ask you this. So, you are a mature man. What is your what generation are you in? Are you what? Were you 60, 70 plus? How old are you? Are you up there?
I'm 75.
Okay.
But a lot of people say, well, why are you doing this? Well, first and foremost, they say, well, you're too old. Well, you had a old president just retired.
Yes, he's not making your case any better.
And you have another president that is old as well.
Yeah. Certainly.
But I think what we're missing is whenever you're running anything of this magnitude,
certainly,
city, state, federal, whatever, you need to have knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
Yes.
And you need common sense.
I raised your age, though, as a topic because I wanted to pivot to the question that is important to someone of my age. What is your plan? How are you strategically trying to bridge that generational divide, that gap that exists between young and old,
Yes.
specifically because it takes young working families to rebuild the middle class here in the city. And so, what is your pitch to young people like myself who are young business owners, fathers, husbands, the type of families that you want to really build a city around? How are you reaching out to those individuals?
Well, first part of that is I have 18 grandchildren in the city.
Okay.
I have 9 children
Okay.
in the city, and all the children in the city belongs to us. It takes a village to raise a child. So what is important is to make sure that I relate, because I'm standing up for the children and the young people. So in order to bring about a connection, I first have to realize that the elders, we have let our younger generations down.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And we understand that as elders, when we look in the mirror at ourselves and we realize that our children and our grandchildren's future in this city is questionable, then we have a choice to stand up and do something, knowing that we have the knowledge and information and skill set to make it happen.
But I'm asking more specifically, like, what is your plan to tap into the resource that young people are in this time? And like, we need, in order for us to like make up for the lost ground and the mismanagement of our funds and of our city, quite frankly, we're going to need our mayor to understand that, like, younger people, our generation, we are a valuable resource, like, when it comes to making our government work more efficiently. So you're running for mayor. What is your specific plan to, like I said, address, this age group?
The first thing I want to do as mayor is set up a liaisons to the younger generations where we can have a lot of communication and ask them what they want, what they need, and provide those solutions and opportunities. That, I think that's very important. At the same time, because I've done 15 international trade delegations, 3 of them I did for Wayne County, 2 to China, 1 to the Middle East. We took the largest delegation out of Michigan, which was 34 corporations, GM, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Co-America, etc. So one of the things that that produces is the ability to look at what did those trade delegations produce. Okay, you can say business delegations if it helps the people understand. So one company, for example, out of that 34, in 2024, they made $30 billion. And so they're doing that type of business. Some of that credit has to go for who facilitated and initiated and did the groundwork for them to sit down with the Chevrolet Jahan Group in Qatar, which became distributors. Now, we can do the same thing for residents in the city of Detroit. How to bring in international companies. I had international companies that wanted to come in and bring in computer chip manufacturing in Detroit and train Detroit residents. I had another very rich man out of the Middle East, Abdul Roban. He came here. The governor and the county exec and the mayors, etc., sat with him. He wanted to invest in Detroit. They wanted him to invest somewhere else. So what we're dealing with is a situation where Detroit is having a lot of difficulty. It's an international city and does not have any international companies. And so the narrative of what Atlanta, Georgia is, as opposed to Detroit, Detroit really has the best infrastructure for international business. However, Atlanta has 1,500 international companies. Detroit has 0. So what we've done here is relied totally on the big 3 to pretty much seed the economy here In other words, if the big three goes down or one of the big three goes down, a lot of other industries and businesses in this
So
area
you're
will go
saying we
down.
need to just basically diversify the type of industries that we are dependent on.
Absolutely.
And you're also saying that because we are geographically, in a advantageous position, we should be doing more to capitalize on where we are located in respect to the country with our port, with our bridge. Okay, that makes great sense.
If I may share another narrative, it's very important people understand that this is happening in Detroit. In the predominantly cities where you have the rich or corporations running a particular town or city in America, what they would do was they would keep out purposely large corporations that would come in and pay a livable or occupational wage. And so what they did was kept those companies from coming in those cities and towns so that they could control their labor force.
You think that's what's going on here? Do you think that's kind of what's taking place, that there's a suppression of the market and there are secret for it? Go ahead, tell it to me straight.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Tell it to me straight.
Absolutely.
So then it's important for me as someone who is trying to narrate and really kind of bring to the forefront talking points that people that are watching this can understand. You're talking about structural change.
Absolutely, because what has to happen when you have a city that's approximately 77-80% black, and you have all of these challenges for the mainstream population, with exceptions to those that look like us, who are in with the crew, so to speak. We have to understand that the corporations have been running our city since the great Coleman
But
Young.
here's the thing that I always have to push back on, and I spoke with
Yes, sir.
Mr. Barlow the other day, and my thing is, what is your plan to prepare the workforce for the jobs that you want to bring in? And so my
Beautiful.
thing is, let me just, and I'm a write-in candidate. I'm a candidate for City Council District 5, but I'm also a constituent, a family member, a business owner, and what happens next matters to me. And so I'm asking from that lens. It's like, what are we going to do about the schools? We
Yes.
gotta and the public. The voter in me is looking for someone who is willing to draw a line in the sand and really just say, this has got to change. You know what I mean? Like,
If I may,
please.
as it relates to the schools, I will go backwards. I start with the latter. The schools, Detroit doesn't run the schools, but what we can do and should do is reach out to the school system, work with the universities in the area, and come up with a way that Detroit can actually assist. Whether that's taking X amount of dollars out of Detroit city budget, $3 billion is a lot of money. If you learn to cut the fat out that budget, now you have more money to.
Do you support? And I know you're talking about this, but I'll let you finish the educational piece. But when you're talking about cutting the fat, then it just you just hit another nerve.
Yes.
And someone spoke last night, if I'm not mistaken, about the fact that we need to get back to a place where all of the employees and I forget the word that they were using during COVID, essential workers, so to speak, have to
Yes.
live in the city. Is that something that you're going to mandate as mayor? Or are you going to
Absolutely.
say, okay,
I think that's very important when you have the majority of the
all
top
the people in your administration are going to work?
in this, they're going to live in the city.
Okay.
If they're not living in the city, I'm not hiring them.
Okay.
And those residency is a big issue.
Okay.
So I want to touch on that as I deal with this educational piece and bringing in jobs.
Okay.
Because I think that's very important.
Absolutely.
So we as a mayor, we have a vested interest, if we're for the people, to make sure that our schools are capable of producing our children at a level where they can compete in the 21st century. So you can't bring jobs in if your educational system is in the garbage can. And being 170th in the nation, that's that's disgraceful. So what we will do is taking resources from the city, taking money from the city budget, and see how we can assist Detroit Public Schools, private schools, as well as charter schools. If they're in the city, they're our children. So we need to address all three of them and see how we can give them some resources from the city to upgrade their educational standards and to make sure our children can compete in the 21st century so that we can actually bring them into a new job market.
Now, this may or may not be your field to, kind of this deep down in the weeds, but I do want to just ask you what elements of our educational system need to be changed. And the reason, and I'm driving this because, again, we are trying to sell this city to young families that can live in Southfield if they want to. You know what I mean? We're trying to sell this city to the and we are obviously trying to build it up for the people that have been here, for the people and a lot of us kind of fall under both of those categories, people that have been here, but also people that have the ability to go other places. And so again, what do you think about what do you say about our educational system? How do you feel about Dr. Vitti? Do you all have a relationship? How do you feel like he's doing as a superintendent?
I think if you have a superintendent who has school-age children, and his children are some in a private school, then how are you going to educate my children? I have 2 children, 13 and 17, in Detroit Public Schools. I also have 4 of my grandchildren graduated from Cass. The rest of my grandchildren are in public school. So how are you going to educate my children when your children are somewhere else? So he could not be a superintendent. I don't understand how they renewed his contract because.
So you want to move on as the mayor? You're going to be advocating to move on from Dr. Vitti as a superintendent?
I don't have a problem advocating it because he's not in the community. We need people who have a vested interest in the community. It has already been shown that all these programs and all these outside people who are working in the city or educating our children, they don't have our best interests at heart, and that's why we're at 170th. If you are not going to put the necessary resources and structure, you can't graduate children who cannot read or reading. They've got a diploma and they're reading at 8th grade level. That's what's happening in Detroit.
Yeah.
And so another thing, our children are graduating high school without a knowledge of local politics. Local politics is really the foundation and is very important. So you can ask whether they come from Cass, Renaissance, or wherever, how does local government work? They can't tell you. So what we're doing as a people is allowing them to miseducate our children. If that's going to stop, you're going to have a strong leader that's going to stand up and make sure that we get inclusion, that our children have the resources. When I was in school, we had the same problems. Even though the school system was better, back then I had a simple scenario. I took auto mechanics. We had to read out of books, the illustration and designs. That's what we learned out of. Then we took field trips to the white schools. They had engines. They had tools. They had all of that back then. So we've been constantly kept at a disadvantage, and I'm tired of it.
What are we cutting? And they were talking last night at the forum about a number of things, and I can't remember who brought it up. It must have been a panelist that says, we're talking about programs, we're talking about what we can do, but we're going to have to cut something. We're going to have to cut something now. As a candidate myself in the different rates, I know exactly what needs to be cut, and I'm curious to know where do you think the cuts are going to need to take place?
Good question. Love it. Would have loved to have that question last night, because what we have to understand is we have the money.
Yes.
Detroit is not poor. Detroiters must understand they're really not poor either. It's just that those resources are going to the corporations and the rich and not to the people. So that's why we have to bring that diverse economy in. So what we need to cut, we need to dismantle the land bank. We need to cut. The first thing we need to do is do a financial audit or forensic audit, so that we can see where all those millions went that's missing. I know one of the council people spoke last night and said, well, we have audits every year. Well, they never spoke about the $70 million that was missing out of the HUD fund for demolition, $70 million. And then you go throughout so many other city departments, millions of dollars are missing, unaccounted for.
Yeah.
So the first thing you have to do now is do the audit, see where you are, and then begin to put each department on a zero budgeting.
Okay.
What that means is when this feasibility study is done, how to run that department, now you are in full understanding of what it takes to run that department. And if their budget is much higher and they can't justify it, then you can take that finance and put it somewhere else.
How do you get the city government to be more efficient? That's one of the things that people
And
complain about. Is
yes.
that the phones don't answer.
Right, and that's why starting with the forensic audit, see where you are, and then each department you must do a feasibility study.
Yeah.
To make it efficient.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Now, they asked the question last night. They were saying, it was so cute. They were saying, if your name's not on the ballot, who would you vote for? I'm not going to ask that question. I think that's no offense to them, but yeah, I'm going to ask it in a more creative way. I want you to imagine that you are mayor. You've just been elected. Congratulations. Woo. But here's the stipulation. You have to the best of your ability, take the other candidates, and you have to give them a job in your administration that is tailored to their strengths. I want to start with Mary Sheffield. What job would you give Mary Sheffield in your administration that is tailored to what you believe her strengths are?
This is going to get me in trouble.
Oh, my gosh.
And make some enemies for me, but I'll say this. I think she communicates well.
Okay.
I would like her to probably head my PR.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, because I think, we talked earlier about having a team and knowing their strengths.
Right.
You're not going to pass somebody the ball and they can barely make a layup and they're on the 3-point line. Nobody's guarding them because they know they can't shoot from the 3-point line.
Yeah, certainly.
So your point guard is not going to give them the ball.
Okay.
To throw up a Hail Mary.
I'm with you. I'll follow.
Okay.
Let's talk Fred Durhall. What jobs do you give Fred Durhall on your administration?
Someone like Fred Durhall, and I know they understand this question was given to me.
Yeah, certainly.
I see him as we need international companies.
Okay.
And I'm an international man.
Okay.
And so he would definitely be on my staff.
Okay.
And working to bring those international and domestic companies into Detroit.
Some type of
for us
ambassador
to have
for
those
the
jobs.
city. Yeah, go a representation, a representative, an ambassador, I should say, of the city of Detroit, maybe traveling different. Where would you have Todd Perkins work for you in your administration?
Oh, he would head my
law department.
or
That'd be a circus. A fun
or
circus, yeah.
or he would, he could also get into doing agreements or contracts for international companies that
Okay.
come into Detroit.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about John Barlow. He's also a businessman. Where would he work in your administration? What do you think his strong areas are?
Because he's a businessman, I would put him in the domestic market for recruiting businesses from around the country to come to
Okay.
Detroit.
Okay, that would be good. I could see him doing that. Let's see Miss Jenkins, Chantel Jenkins. Where would she fit in your administration?
I think she would be good for policy
Okay.
and how to interact with regional government
Okay.
and state government
Okay.
and maybe federal
Okay.
to bring in resources and to organize.
Okay. So she's more so communicating with the county executives, the state legislators, and maybe even talking in communication with
think
the
that's
federal
her
government on
strong
your
point.
behalf. Okay, that's good, and I think that's important because we understand that this cycle does a number of things. It obviously creates new elected officials, but it also gives us an opportunity. I firmly believe that all of the candidates are obviously running to win their race, but something that naturally happens simultaneously is they're auditioning for other positions,
Yes,
and
sir.
and so everybody can't win, but even as we've been going through this election cycle, you've been seeing that, this person does have a strong area, and so you love to just kind of see the best of all the candidates.
I don't want to leave Chief Craig out.
Oh, yes, Chief Craig, yes.
And the reason for it is he is very knowledgeable about law enforcement.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't know if he would be interested in being a police chief because
Okay.
he's done that.
Are you getting rid of
So-
Todd Edison? Wait a minute, that's
Well-
breaking news.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm
Okay.
not saying that.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course not. I think he's capable as well. But for Chief Craig, I think he'd be a great law enforcement consultant.
Okay, certainly.
I would.
But big events is something. If a big event comes into town, or there's a national crisis, or yeah,
Or
certainly.
and you have you run in a big city, so you do have challenges.
Certainly.
And you have all types of scenarios where knowledge, wisdom, and understanding comes into play.
Absolutely.
Because the application is the next step. If you have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, you have to know how to apply it.
Apply it, certainly. Let me ask you this as we get ready to wrap up. What are your views federally? One of the things I've been seeing on the kind of on the political platforms here locally is that, whenever people kind of explain their platform, they are so adamant about saying, either that they love Trump or hate Trump. I'm not asking you to do that, but I do want to know what your philosophy is with interacting with the federal government. What are your views on the direction of the White House and the priorities that they have set forth? Do you think that they are being effective in pursuing their mission? Just kind of give me your
My take on it.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we need to do is have an open mind and look at what's positive and look at what's negative. On the positive side, I see him cutting the budgets or looking at how much money we're giving to foreign companies or countries. I like the fact that he's cutting that, and I hope he'll take that money and start to build urban America and, of course, Detroit. He said Detroit was, a trash can, that's basically, or a dump. And so now, as mayor, I have connections into the White House. I would, you have the money here now because they were sending $300 billion to Mexico, $200 billion to Canada, and all these other countries.
Yeah.
They were spending U.S. dollars. So efficiency, if he's going to pull that money back to help build our cities, then that's a positive.
Absolutely.
I have to say this as well. people talk about JFK. Well, he's in the Trump administration. You know, sometimes I work hard to find food that's chemical free. We're having high rates of cancer and other sicknesses that we never had before, and we have to think that this water situation and food situation needs to be cleaned up.
Absolutely.
So the fact that they're taking 10,000 chemicals, like growing up, I like snacks. Today, our children's snacks are full with red 40, yellow this, yellow that, BHT, da 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 da. Things that you don't even know unless you look it up and understand. So we will have healthier children if we don't have all those chemicals. So that's a positive.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, I think pretty much what we need to do as a community is understand the importance of politics at the local level,
Certainly.
get involved, and stop handing our children dysfunctional systems. Here again, it's about the young people.
Absolutely.
You know, we are over half of our lifespan.
Absolutely. You guys on the back nine, as they say.
And so that's why I can't be bought. People say, oh, you always have a price. No. Someone has to stand up for the people. Somebody has to stand up for the children. Someone has to have an empowerment platform for the community.
Mr. Joel Haashiim, I thank you so much for taking a few moments with me, and I definitely, we crossed paths some time ago, a couple months ago, and we've had an opportunity to give each other opportunities to be in front of the other person's audience, and so we definitely need to do this again. I thank you again publicly for allowing me to come on your platform and speak to your audience. It was a couple months ago, but I definitely appreciate that, and a win or lose in both of our races, as I definitely intend to stay connected with you. I find you to be a person of integrity, and I thank you for spending a couple of moments with me today. Let our viewers know where we could find your website and your information.
Yes, sir. You go to JOELH4 mayor.com. That's joelh4mayor.com. Go to my website. We have a phone number. Put out some money. Send it. Don't allow the corporations and the rich to fund your candidates and think that after they take all that money from those corporations and the rich, that they're going to work for you. They're not going to work for you. They're going to continue. And so if you want change, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to spend a few dollars for it. So donate to the campaign if you like what I'm sharing. Read my website. And if you stand for empowerment of our community, our future, for our children and our grandchildren, then I'm your man.
Mr. Joel Haashiim, a candidate for mayor of Detroit, Michigan. Thank you guys so much. Again, my name is Whitney Clark. I'm a write-in candidate for Detroit City Council District 5. We're going to be planning something. Hopefully we can have an event together. So just again, that people can get to hear from all of the candidates. Of course, we're going to be offering a platform and an opportunity to all of those who are running for public office at the mayor in the mayor's race, because I know that we are capable of making sure that what's discussed here mirrors what the people are discussing. And so again,